card number 1. I dropped my glasses and somebody stepped on them, so I'm struggling to see sometimes. Shinjin is the Buddha's heart and mind shared with us. Shinjin is the source of trust, confidence, and commitment that motivates our participation in Pure Land Buddhist tradition. Shinjin is given to us without any required action, good deeds, or practices. For Jodo Shinshu Buddhists and others in the Pure Land stream of Mahayana Buddhism, what is called faith in general usage can be, and usually is, a result of receiving Shinjin. While we do not identify Shinjin and faith, faith is a common effect of the receipt of Shinjin. So faith is a common and a usual effect of receiving Shinjin. Shinjin being the encounter with the Buddha, the vow, the promise to all. Now in other places I've said that faith is one of the models we need, one of the conceptual mock-ups we need to understand Shinjin. But today I'm putting it a little more simply and just saying that Shinjin is the source of our religious faith. Shinjin is the encounter with the Buddha, the encounter with this vow, the promise of liberation for all. It is a very deep process, and our faith in the Buddha, the vow, the Nimbutsu, is an effect that it has. So that's a lot to throw out just right off the top, but any comments about any of this off the top? Anybody have a comment of their own, alternate view, a concern? Yeah.
So it says Shinjin is the encounter with the Buddha's, or it's the Buddha's heart and mind shared with us. Mm-hmm. That kind of leads to the question of what is the Buddha's heart and mind?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the Buddha's heart and mind would be a mode of being which is utterly clear and open and universally compassionate, and universal in the sense of direction. The concern of the Buddha is with everyone, the compassion is directed to everyone, but the catch is that this heart and mind shared within us, that the mind and heart can be shared with us, but is it activated in our living? So that's the thing. But the Buddha's heart and mind is this awoken truth. So we're looking at more than one model. We need more than one model to understand this. But here, this model is a kind of model of one great consciousness that takes all things in. You know, Schrödinger had said that consciousness is a singularity. He just used the wrong word. Subjectivity is a singularity. But that itself is only one model. That's one way of understanding, one great intelligence that we all share. The Buddha's mind and heart are one great multicellular organism that we are absorbed into. Yes?
So is that multicellular organism? I was wondering the difference between Shinjin and what Shinran has mentioned several times, the ocean of Shinjin. And I was wondering if the ocean is kind of where our individual cell gets networked with some other Shinjin cells.
Well, that's right. That's the kind of model you would need. But then again, we need more than one way of thinking about this. So that is indeed one of the things that we are taking under Shinran's guidance. Now, the idea that we come to have the same mind and heart as the Buddha is a uniquely Buddhist possibility. And it is not something that you have in the theistic religions. So this is one of the points of difference.
So you use the word faith, and I know that some of us have
negative associations, yeah.
Yeah, because of the theistic usage that it's commonly used. So I think we end up having to differentiate what our usage of faith is in terms of Shinjin versus what people in this culture are coming from theistic.
Right, so and I will be getting into this as well as we go on, and we'll get back to this. But so simply put, that what I'm taking as faith is Reverend Dr. Leslie Kalamurha's translation. Now his translation is of Shraddha, but I'm saying this is for Shinjin too. His translation covers Shinjin. And that translation is trusting confidence. He used this in a book he did with Herbert Gunther 65 years ago, and he called it confidence trust. And then about 15 years ago, I said, well, let's just call it trusting confidence, which is a little more fluid. So yeah, that's what I mean by faith, is trusting confidence. And we will be continuing going back to this, so don't worry, we'll be digging into this.
Great, thank you.
I'm sorry, Mike. Are you growing tired of us already? So let me go ahead to card 2. We'll go to card 2. Card 2. Have you seen the internet thing where this guy made these stickers, and the sticker says, these paper towels are voice activated, just say loudly, paper towel now. And it's just a sticker that's put on. You can just imagine when you're doing that and the guy walks in on you, paper towel now. Card 2, now, and he did it. Maybe John did it for me, but Johnson said, so faith is believing in and believing that. Believing in is the crucial element, which is finding worth in and entrusting. Believing that such and such is the case is slightly less central to the matter of faith, but it is always involved to some degree. So this is pretty much a universal. What I'm saying here is what anybody will tell you that's looked into this stuff, you know. The conclusion, what you draw from this then is still open very much to analysis, question, and reflection. And Alan Watts went a little too far on this, that Alan Watts once said, the more faith you have, the less beliefs you have. That's a little bit of an oversimplification, I'm afraid, Alan. It's not quite like that, but what is true is that the more faith you have, the less attached you are to the details of your belief. The little details may be moved this way or that way if your faith is genuine. But it isn't that you can absolutely separate believing in from believing that. There's some degree of believing that such and such is true or the case involved in having confidence, trusting confidence, which is really what I mean emerges from Shinjin in our tradition, in our stream of tradition. But this trusting confidence is one of the things I'm saying is essentially a presupposition of biological life. You have to have faith in something or you wouldn't be breathing. Your heart wouldn't be beating anymore. You would just lie down and die. Now for myself, I have trust and reliance upon Amida Buddha, their vow power, their vows, their promises to all of us. And in trust to Amida Buddha, I don't see Amida Buddha as a singular person, but Amida Buddha does include a dimension of personhood. Compassion implies personhood. The air isn't compassionate. It really isn't. The air fills your lungs and allows you to breathe. It would also, if you go a little deeper, it'll crush you to death. It doesn't care. It'll crush you or it'll nurture you, whichever. The air itself isn't trying to help you. The air, I'm afraid, is impersonal. Amida Buddha is not impersonal. They are also not just one big guy. So it is what it is that we're entrusting ourselves to or having confidence in becomes more and more clear to us as our life progresses, and it may change. And so I may find myself at a certain point to have been naive. That just means the ideas I associated with this trusting confidence were inadequate and need revision. They always do. They always will, you know. And so I myself would say, I've been a Buddhist for 57 years. I would say 57 years ago, I had a very kind of concrete concept of Buddha nature that was almost like a pure inner soul thing. I knew it wasn't a soul, you know, but it still had a little bit of that flavor, this inner purity. It ain't inner. It's no more inside me than it is outside of me. My view has changed. The confidence and trust in the Buddha and this process, the Shinjin that we can receive, that hasn't changed, but my understanding will change, and your understanding of things should change, you know. I'll probably miss the fight tonight, but the reasons I had that I thought Crawford would win I really pretty much go back to a 50-50 now. But I have trusting confidence that both of these guys are, these are two of the 4 best athletes in the world today. And I hope it lives up to its expectations like Ali Frazier 1 did. Let's go to card 3. We'll come back to a bunch of this stuff, don't worry. I apparently have a lot to say about this. Card number 3, faith is trusting confidence. Faith makes factual claims. Faith asserts that its object is worthy of trust, is worthy, admirable, and excellent. Faith involves commitment and therefore makes claims about what a person will do. So again, if you don't like the term faith, you just write in trusting confidence every time you see faith. Faith is trusting confidence. Trusting confidence makes factual claims. Trusting confidence asserts that its object of trust and confidence is worthy of that trust, is worthy, admirable, and excellent. Trusting confidence involves commitment and therefore makes claims about what a person will do. So again, we'll be more and more using this term trusting confidence, which I take from the late Reverend Dr. Leslie Kawamura of the University of Calgary and the Canadian Kyodan. Faith is trusting confidence. Besides trusting that which reason, reflection, and experience lead you to trust, one therefore becomes more confident. Not in all things. I leave early for places because I get lost. Johnson's had to wait for me for lunch Wednesday. I was the last minister to show up. Couldn't find the dang place. So I leave early, right? I left to be here at 10 o'clock. I left at 7:07. I stopped at Denny's. I had breakfast. Denny's makes good hash browns, you know. High salt content, but they surely do taste good. I am confident, not in my ability to find places, but in my destiny at death. I am not worried about that. I am confident in centering my life on the Nembutsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Again, I think we need to engage with the Nembutsu more often, I think, than our tradition sometimes tells us. The Nembutsu is the embodiment of the promise to all living beings. As we look deeply into the Buddha's heart and mind, we see the true implications of the vow. The vow is not just for human beings. The vow is for all living beings. That Buddhist term, which is so important, sentient beings. We're very concerned with every sentient being. This is a pen. I love these 4-color pens. I treat this pen with a reasonable amount of dignity because it's an object in the world. But the truth is, if I were rough with it, it wouldn't matter too much. It would be bad for me, but not for the pen. But when you shout at the cat, it really hurts. It really hurts the cat. It really hurts the dog. You know, sentient beings. We're concerned with everything that has experience. We want everything that has experience to experience positive things, particularly pleasure, happiness, and kindness, concern for others. I am confident in centering my life on the Nembutsu. I'm confident in seeing the Nembutsu as the embodiment of Amida Buddha's liberating activity. I see the Nembutsu, Namo Amida Butsu, and other forms, Namo Amida Butsu, as my point of contact with the sacred. As I've said several times here now, faith or trusting confidence makes factual claims. So it isn't that faith is entirely about believing in and not believing that. You are believing that certain things are true. Faith is a matter of entrusting and relying, but that involves some assertion of belief. There is an assumption that Shakyamuni had some real genuine awakening at the foundation of our tradition. And there's a confidence, a trusting that the sutras, the written record of our tradition, contain the insight of Shakyamuni and other great men and women who saw deeply into life. And that those sutras are reliable for explaining the insights of the Buddha and his disciples and everyone else. That is in the tradition. We got more than 100,000 pages of literature. If you translate it into English, it's more than 1 million pages. There's stuff we'll never translate. There's stuff like this text shows you every text that was written by Wang Hyo. And who was Wang Hyo? We don't know. So there are things like that in the Buddhist text. We're never going to translate that into English. There's no point in translating it. We don't know who that guy was. Those books don't exist anymore. But most of it is quite valuable, and if we translate it all, again, it's something like 1 million pages, quite a remarkable resource. And I have faith that that is a resource, and it is reliable. I have trusting confidence of that fact. So let me, again, any comments, questions, alternate views at this juncture? We're going to come back to all this stuff, so don't worry, but happy to hear your views on these things as well. But if not, we're going to jump to card 3. I call them cards, slides. Card 3.
Sensei, could you go back, your final bullet there, I don't...
On 2?
Can you elaborate on that and explain about what a person will do? Card 3.
I'm sorry.
Card 3, yeah.
Okay. Well, let me read through it, and we'll stop there at the last one for analysis then. Card 3, faith is trusting confidence. Faith makes factual claims. Faith asserts that its object is worthy of trust, is worthy, admirable, and excellent. Faith involves commitment and therefore makes claims about what a person will do. So that's the concern. Yeah, so
Who will do? What I will do?
what a person of faith will do. What would, yeah. If someone says that if someone tells me that they have faith in the Torah, then I know there's an issue about what in the 19th century came to be called Zionism. That's one of the things I know. I don't know that they're a Zionist. I know that there's this religious literature that they believe to be revealed truth says that the Jewish people have a right to a homeland, you know.
So what you mean, faith involves commitment and therefore makes claims about what that person of faith will do.
That's right, what that person will do.
Thank you.
Okay, then, yeah, so let me go ahead and jump to card 4 then. And here we go. Faith is commitment we add to knowing, not a belief in the absence of knowledge. Faith is engagement with ideas, persons, traditions that we deem valuable. Such perception that the object of our faith is worthwhile is something we find ourselves to have, something we discover about ourselves as we mature, like our sexual orientation, not something we decide. So whether some particular person's faith, whether some particular person's trusting confidence in traditions, in ideas, in persons is genuine or not, it is not something that they simply have as opposed to knowledge. It's something they add to their knowledge. They have that faith because they knew this guy, they knew what he said, they knew what it implied, and they liked that. You know, it's not simply that trust and confidence or faith is what you have when you don't have knowledge. It's something you need to add to your knowledge. There's a Christian theologian passed on since then, Wilfred Cantwell Smith, but he quotes a passage in Macbeth, Shakespeare's Macbeth, and it would be great if Shakespeare had used the word faith, but he used the word belief in this context, and it really, for Shakespeare in this context, then belief does mean the same thing as faith in this quote. And what the quote is when Macduff or whatever has laid out to Malcolm, the king's son, the assassinated king's son, that it has to have been Macbeth who did it. And all the evidence is right there, and Malcolm's just going, I don't believe this. No, he was my father's loyal defender. He was the guy, the go-to guy, you know? And Macduff or whoever, I've got in the play, says to him, believe it because you know it's true. So what Cantwell Smith is pointing out is just that you know something doesn't mean you act on it and you engage. That's why you need faith, trusting, confidence. You need to have confidence in your own knowledge. In this play, Malcolm can't believe it. It's just, and Macbeth is one of those plays where the actor or the actress has to draw everything out. You know, I saw it performed at Ashland, and the guy, this African-American actor who played Macbeth, in the first parts of the play, oh man, I mean, this guy is, whoa, he just is so impressive. You know, this guy is the warrior. Yeah, I killed those 74 people for you. You know? And because it's not in the text. The actor has to do that. Just like Gertrude in Hamlet. I think Meryl Streep managed to be the worst Gertrude in history, where Hamlet says, I'm not going to drink this wine. Oh, well, never waste a good glass of wine. She's not just a lush. She knows it's poison. She knows it's poison. Come on. Every other actress in the world has known it was poison. Meryl Streep's just a lush. Terrible performance. She was out-acted by Mel Gibson. I mean, that says something. Bad day for Meryl Streep. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing in Macbeth, that the Malcolm character cannot believe what he knows to be true. The evidence is very clear. Genuine trusting confidence or faith is what you add to your knowledge. It's actually bringing your whole person engaging in dealing with this fact. Again, faith is a commitment that we add to what we think we have knowledge of, not believing in the absence of knowledge. It is something, and this is something I have to reiterate a few times, I think. In speaking of having faith as engagement, we touch further on the social dimension. Our faith is in persons. Our faith is in traditions, but those traditions were started by persons and kept alive by people. Even if you have faith in ideas, there were persons, communities, and disciplines that produced those ideas, or allowed you to produce your own new ideas in which you now have faith. We do not have faith in isolation. Faith always has a communal aspect. We human beings need association with one another. We need to participate in projects with one another. We need, as persons of faith, to encounter one another. So I'll come back, just a couple questions I want you to think about, and we'll talk about this more at the end. Who do you have faith in? What ideas do you really trust? We have to discover the answer to that question in living our lives, actually, but we will talk a little bit about that in a bit. You know, that faith is something we discover about ourselves through maturation, like our sexual orientation, and not something we decide. I think, in a sense, that's easier for someone to understand if they're not straight, if they're not heterosexual, you know, because so many of us who are heterosexual, at a recent event, I described my own sexuality as monaural, as opposed to stereo or quadraphonic. I'm just monaural, ordinary, you know, and so when we discover what our sexual orientation is, it's what everybody thought it was in the first place and what we thought it was. So in a sense, we don't get to, the person who's gay can understand this better. That it's true that I never had to change my mind about sexual orientation, but I've changed my mind about religious belief quite a few times now. I started out as a Catholic. I went through Catholic schooling for 12 years. I received the religion award on graduation from high school. I was also the only student who didn't go to receive communion at the Mass because I didn't believe in any of it anymore. I could spell it out for them. I understand what they're saying. I get the theory, but I didn't believe in it anymore. I like many of my generation, again, I'm 76, I pursued studies of Hinduism and Buddhism at the same time. In fact, more of a Hindu yoga orientation in the beginning, but my teacher was a yogi and a follower of Aurobindo Gosai, Sri Aurobindo, had said, you've got to study Buddhism. They're so organized. Yeah, and I know what he means now, which is Hinduism is so disorganized. It's whatever so-and-so says it is, you know? I mean, it's all over the place. But yeah, so I was involved with Hinduism and Buddhism simultaneously, and I dropped anything like theism or Hinduism in 1974 on the basis of a meditative experience where my meditation was mostly Soto Zen, kind of shikantaza. But then in 1983, I entered the Jodo Shinshu temple, and it clicked for me right away. And I don't really meditate unless somebody makes me now, unless I have to teach it for a class because somebody wants to learn about it, which is fine. You should learn about it. I mean, it's, but anyway, I've changed. So the object of my trust and confidence has changed over the years. And I think in a sense, my friends who are gay have the advantage that they had that with this other part of their life. So they get it, yeah. It isn't, I still have this part of myself, but it's directed here. It's not directed there. I thought it was, you know. And boy, it's not directed toward any kind of a God, I'll tell you, my trust and confidence, but it is genuine, and it's directed towards the Buddha, the vow, the land, the Nembutsu, the Shinjin, all of which have some degree of a personal dimension. Not a big guy in the sky, but some degree of personal dimension. I'll go on to card 5. Every living thing has some faith. We believe every living thing has some faith. This is a short card anyway, so don't worry. Because it needs a trust in its environment and the assurance to persist. Every living thing has some faith, a trust in its environment, and the assurance to persist. Understood as trusting confidence, faith is a precondition of viability on planet Earth. People will just shut down, you know, I mean, one of the facts that I remember we were reading on the internet that if a bee gets separated from the hive, it just sits down and dies. And so the guy who first wrote this on the internet says, it dies of loneliness. Well, I don't know if it's lonely, but it's like, hey, the hive, the community, that's how I live. I don't know where it is now. I just give up. There's no reason to persevere without the hive and the community of fellow bees. When my parents died, they left a Chihuahua, and my sister and I were trying to figure out how old the thing was, and it had to be more than 20 years old. It was an ancient Chihuahua. And my sister lived in Montana. It's dead the first night if she takes it. I was at the L.A. Betsuine at the time, and 30 years ago, L.A. Betsuine was an average, if you average it out through the week, it was an average of 2 or 3 services a day. And so the poor thing would have never had any company if I took it, right? It would have just sat at home by itself, lonely and unhappy all day, every day. But my sister found this lady down the street who wanted the Chihuahua for her son. And now, first of all, I have this thing. So my sister gives her like $400 or something to take care of the Chihuahua. Now, that person can take that $400 and dump the Chihuahua at the pound the next day if she wanted to. But what we didn't know, we found out, unfortunately, very unfortunate event had happened, that her son had been in a terrible car wreck, and he was quadriplegic. Teenage boy, suffering from quadriplegia. Well, this little chihuahua could jump on the bed and lick his face. He loved the dog, you know. And the dog had given up, when my parents died, had given up any faith in life. He stopped eating, and he started pooping all over the house. And you think, well, where does this come from? He never put anything in his mouth. How can it come out on the floor? But he did. I don't know what he managed to poop out, but he pooped all over the rug. And but we never saw him eat anything. He was so depressed. You give him to this little boy, and his faith in life came back. We're not that much different. We have to have faith. We have to have real confidence and real trust in people, in communities, in traditions, or we will give up. Let me move on to card 6, if I may.
I was gonna say, can you go back one?
Yeah. I was going to say that this would be a good time to stop. Yeah. We can.
Every living, well-functioning being, and you alluded to a dog, which we can kind of see how that would apply to a dog, let's say known dog, and maybe a honeybee. But of course, there are many other smaller and less elaborated organisms. So you seem to be ascribing faith to a kind of a metabolic.
Yeah, I think it's an aspect of the existence of any kind of complex organism. Let me say animals. I don't think you're going to find animals existing without something like what we call faith, trusting confidence in the pack and the environment.
Okay, animals, all right.
Yeah. I'm not going to guarantee that. I'm not.
Bacteria.
No. Yeah, that was one of, I was involved with this Arvin Ogose's Integral Yoga in 1968, and he had a girlfriend, a French girlfriend, and she became called the mother of Southern India, a French woman. I don't remember what her real name was, but she believed that each individual cell has consciousness. I think that's nonsense. Yeah, no, I'm not saying individual cells have consciousness. I'm saying that any kind of complex organism is going to have something like what we mean by faith, a trusting confidence in its environment, its own judgment, its own capabilities. And one of the things you see with all those experiments that fortunately they're not allowed to do anymore, but the one that they did with dogs where they used electroshock, and they would, at an irregular rate, make one side of the cage give an electroshock. So at first the dogs would move around for a while, and they'd change it. And what happens is after a while, only this side is electric, and the dog just sits there. It gives up. It's given up. It has no trust in its own judgment. What the hell? Wherever I go, it shocks me. I quit. I'm just going to lay here. And the dogs will just lay on that, and they'll get shocked every so often, and they give up trying, well, what if we went over there? We're all like that. We'll just give up, We've got to have some confidence, some trust, some reliance on our own judgment and our own environment. But again, I'm not talking about cells, individual cells, even though the analogy there of multicellular unity is a good analogy for what the Buddha is suggesting to us, for one model that we need. But no, I just am talking about complex forms of life, self-aware beings.
I have a query.
Yes.
You had mentioned your Catholicism and then Hinduism, Buddhism. And so I'm assuming that you didn't choose your Catholicism?
Yeah, I was raised by my parents, my father, my mother. Yeah, my mother was raised Catholic, and so she got me into Catholic schools. And my father, growing up, I was told my father was atheist. And when I was 35, I was told the truth, that he was raised Mormon. Because if you're Catholic, atheist is all right. They just don't believe in Mormons. they believe this weird stuff, you know. But they finally told me it was about 35. Well, actually, he was raised normal.
So the question,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we may revisit it, as Sensei Crane alluded to, but at what point did your theistic belief turn to trusting confidence?
Well, I see the Buddhist. I mean, I came into the Buddhist tradition from the Mahayana and from Soto Zen, and later Rinzai Zen as well. I did koan study with Aitken Roshi for a year, but at some point, anything like the theistic belief just fell away in my teen years, you know, and human beings are blessed by something that allows us to forget about religion when we're teenagers. It's called sexuality. And, you know, I'm always amazed at why adults think that teenagers would be interested in anything except the opposite sex and sports, because that's all we were concerned about when we were teenagers. So why do we expect our kids to be different, you know? But because human sexuality had come up, and the only sport I was involved in my youth was bowling, but I was obsessed with bowling. And while you're looking at sexuality and sports, and then just this religion just kind of disappears, you know. And at some point you realize, no, And then the 60s came, and things were different, and the plausibility of some kind of spirituality reemerged for me, you know, and all this, you know, John Lennon and George Harrison are all telling me this stuff. And so the position that I simply come to is that I cannot put divinity at the origin of things. This world is obviously not designed. This is not intelligent design. Most beings die by being eaten alive. That's the way most things die. Most beings suffer more than Jesus ever did. Jesus suffered less than average. We are so privileged as modern Americans with all our conveniences. We don't realize how bad life is for most living beings, and not just animals, humans too. It's really rough. It's really bad. Nobody would have designed it like this. At the origin of life is gravity, electromagnetism, strong nuclear force, weak nuclear force, and then those other things that we don't know what they are. You call it dark matter and dark energy, which just means those other things that we don't know what they are, you know? And that's what's at the origin. And out of this emerges everything. Good, bad, ugly, beautiful, sweet, painful. And as living beings, we prefer kindness, warmth, goodness. There's a pretty much agreement amongst living beings. And one of the things I love on the internet is all these videos about interspecies bonding, you know, that this is quite common, you know, like things like a pack of wolves raising the abandoned bear cub. That does happen. Those kind of things do happen. It was a well-documented event about 25 years ago, a tsunami in East Africa, and this baby hippo had been orphaned, and it was adopted by a male tortoise, like an 80-year-old tortoise that this poor baby hippo just lost, and the tortoise got it. The tortoise taught it to come down here to get a drink of water, and here's where the tall grass is where you can eat. It took care of that hippo, you know. This is real. This emerges. It is goodness, kindness, concern for others emerge out of the causes and conditions of this life. So does meanness and insensitivity and all that stuff. It's up to us, living beings, which emergences we want to engage with. So I've come to see life itself as valuable, as beautiful, as the source of all good things. And it's also the source of all bad things and all ugly things. And it's up to us and other living beings to try to tweak the emergence of goodness, beauty, gentility, and to do nothing to tweak the emergence of violence, hatred, exclusivity. Let's go ahead to the next card, card 6. The Nimbutsu has many verbal forms. Namu Amida Butsu, Namu Amida Butsu, Kimyo Jinji Pomu, Gekonyorai, Namanda Budamanda, Namandabu, Namandabu, Namanda Budamanda. In any form, the Nimbutsu is the focused presence of the process of liberating all. There is a commitment to liberate all suffering and deluded beings, to lead us out of suffering and sorrow, lead us into goodness, beauty, sharing, community. That commitment is being worked out in more than one dimension, in more than one way. But one of the dimensions is this Nembutsu Shinjin thing. And we are given Nam Amida Butsu as a way of transmitting this transformed identity of Shinjin. And any one of these forms of Nembutsu can remind us that this is happening. That at that point, in our stream of tradition, there is an inevitable humility that emerges. It's very different from some of the other streams of tradition because Nam Amida Butsu, that's liberating every suffering and deluded being. Yeah. And I should participate in this. Yeah. So what should we do? Besides saying Nam Amida Butsu and being a little nicer to one another. One of the posts you'll see on the internet is a quote from Aldous Huxley, who said at one point, "It's rather embarrassing after all the years I've spent studying religious culture of the world that really all I can say to you is, it'd be nice if we were a little nicer to one another." You want more than that. Aldous wanted more than that, but he knew he didn't have it. He studied Tibetan Buddhism and Hinduism and all that stuff. He was a follower of Krishnamurti. But when it comes right down to it, what is the upshot of a lifetime of studying spirituality? It would really be nice if we could all be a little nicer to one another. And we want more than that. I want to send a light. Let's send a light to the Gaza Strip and stop all the fighting. I can't do that right now. You want to write your congressmen, your senators? Why aren't we all writing our congressmen and senators? Because every one of them that knows what we want is already doing everything they can to do what we want, and it's not doing any good. And the rest of them don't care. What are you going to do? It's very frustrating to be a human being who is becoming a little more aware of their environment. The more aware you become, the more you become aware of your own helplessness. And that's why in Shinshu we really do have to have some humility. You know, I really want to stop the suffering, and there's very little I can do. So I do the little that I can do, like doing these study of the Dharma. If we continue to disseminate the study of the Buddha Dharma, there will be more peace in the world. There will be less conflict. It's only this little thing we're doing. I mean, here we are as Buddhist people in this Mahayana stream. We can move this a little bit this way. There's all this other stuff going on. I can't do anything about that. I can't do much about that. But Nam Amida Butsu is a piece of the solution. Nam Amida Butsu is connected with this commitment to the well-being of all suffering and deluded beings. And by encountering this and trusting in this vision, I myself am better able to focus in this environment.
Excuse me, Sensei.
Yes,
Is the Nembutsu a portal? An opportunity for us to get the message? A
Well-
feedback loop, so to speak, you know, a recognition that there's multi-dimensions out there.
That's right.
We're
It's
connected
just,
to those dimensions.
right, it's a portal, but it's a portal for influence flowing into our lives. This is the thing that can be frustrating for us, is it's a portal, but we can't really live our lives in utter purity and awakening. There's too much else going on for us. And so, yeah, the Nembutsu is a portal into great purity and truth, but it's not that we can walk in there and stay there. As so far as we can see in this stream of tradition. But it is a portal to that which is absolutely precious, valuable, sacred.
Sometimes I feel like we're Buddhists at our level of cognition. And that cognition changes over time because we take on new information and we
Yes.
accept and reject that information over time. And we start to form our ideas of what it means to be a Buddhist.
Mm-hmm.
And that portal to Amida Buddha is the way we start to embody and feel our interdependence. It's that message, that sender receiver, and it keeps going out and coming back, going out and coming back. So ultimately it becomes one thing. It's ultimate reality, it's just all one thing. But we have to become aware of it, otherwise we're sleepwalking.
Right, but we also, I think that, again, in the kind of stream of tradition we're in, we have to accept that we cannot stay in clear and perfect cognition of this at all times. And we have to avoid becoming unduly frustrated by that, you know. One of the people I studied with, Ron Davidson, we studied Tibetan Buddhism with him at IBS. He's a real big name now in Tibetan studies, but he was telling me one time that he knew this Tibetan Lama, and the Tibetan Lama says one day he's just sitting there drinking tea with the Tibetan Lama, and the Lama goes, "I had a dream last night with breasts in it. Breasts, a woman's breasts. It's been 20 years, I've never had anything like that." Ugh! It just made him so angry, you know? Breasts. So, I mean, he was a little too rigid. Yeah, you can have dreams, things can come up, you know. The Nembutsu, all these forms, you know, there was a religious scholar that spoke, I don't remember what his name, he's one of these pop guys, you know, like the Japanese version of Joseph Campbell or something like that. And he was visiting Betsuin, and he asked me, "What's your favorite form of Nembutsu?" And I said, "Namanda." And he smiled, he liked hearing that. But they're all good. And there's a passage in Shinran's letters where one of his students from the Kanto region writes him and says, "You know, shouldn't we all just be saying Namo Amida Butsu like everybody? I mean, some of the guys are saying like Kimyo, Jinjipo, Muge Konyorai, isn't that kind of like pretentious?" And Shinran writes back, says, "Oh no, Vasubandhu Bodhisattva innovated that form of Nembutsu, Kimyo, Jinjipo, Muge Konyorai, because it tells us exactly who and what Amida Buddha is. And Kimyo, Jinjipo, Muge Konyorai means I rely upon. Kimyo, that's straightforward. You know, Namu, actually, we say it means I rely upon, but it actually means I respect. But for us, it means rely. But Kimyo is straight out rely. Kimyo, Jinjipo. without obstruction, Jin Jipo, Jin into Jipo, the 10 directions, that's a Chinese symbol for everywhere. Kimyo, I rely upon that penetrating into every dimension of reality. Muge Ko, unobstructible light. Nyorai, the one who has come from reality such as it is. So Kimyo, Jinjipo, Muge Ko Nyorai means I rely upon the one who emerges from reality such as it truly is, whose wisdom light penetrates in every direction without obstruction. So it is kind of long. And I remember I was standing in front of we used to do an English language service in Kyoto the 3 years I was there at Reverend Dennis's temple and Chogenji. And I remember we were going up and you offer incense, and then go socialize. And I was standing behind the later to be Bishop of Hawaii, Reverend Eric Matsumoto, and Eric's Kimyo Jinji Po Muge Ko Nyorai. I'm thinking, Eric, I gotta be somewhere later today. So I know what the guy writing Shinran was feeling. That's what he was feeling. But no, it's a wonderful form of Nimbus because it says so much about what we're talking about. A reality, a compassionate reality, whose transformative wisdom light penetrates everywhere without obstruction. Namanda is just a glyph, just a contact point, Namanda. But that's great too. Namo Amida Butsu is wonderful. Namu Amida Butsu is the same thing. There are people in our denomination who tell you gotta say Namo and not Namu. They're crazy. It's just flat out, that's just ridiculous. I mean, it's exactly the same meaning. For us, it has exactly the same meaning. So any form of the Nembutsu is a contact with this process of liberating all. And the catch is, again, the humility it requires. So why can't we just do it all now? Because this is emergent. Enlightenment emerges out of reality. It is not an original condition. And this is something this is where Shinran and Honan and their colleagues made a step away from Tendai. So Tendai has got all these ideas, wonderful tradition, syncretic, but they had the concept of Hongaku, which means your original self is enlightened. That's false, as a matter of fact. Your original self is gravity, electromagnetism, weak nuclear force, strong nuclear force, dark matter, dark energy. This is where we come from, right here. This complex process. And that theory that inside we're already enlightened, that is just not true. And that's something I think we have to let go of. We have to become more tolerant of the human condition with its many limitations. Despite our many limitations, we are part of a multiverse. We are connected to more than one life. In the long run, all of our suffering will be alleviated, all of our aspirations will be fulfilled. There is a wonderful fulfillment coming to all of us. Unfortunately, we can't just walk over there right now. We have our human limits. We move on to whatever's on card 7. Card 7? So I'm getting a little more optimistic here. Card 7, I rewrote it. Awoken by Amida Buddha's inclusion of us in their wisdom light, we act to liberate others. Beings need to be liberated from external constraints. Beings need to be liberated from external constraints and subjugating forces, as well as from internal compulsions. Liberated by Amida Buddha's inclusion of us in their wisdom light, we act to liberate others. What that comes down to is very clear in Shinran's Article 5 of the Tanisho, which I'll refer to in just a minute, that we come back to help others, particularly those that we have a close connection to. But the thing is, it also means right now, and what can you do to liberate others right now? You know, and our tradition has this phrase, time-honored phrase, Jishin Kyo Ninshin, which means that essentially the one thing that you could really do to help others awaken is to genuinely trust yourself and to genuinely live this life of the Nembutsu yourself. So that's true, but it's not the answer we want. I wanna go save the children who are starving and maimed in Palestine. I want to stop the bombing of Ukraine. I want to stop all the hatred that is being directed towards transgender people. It's just crazy, absolutely insane. Whatever you think of Donald Trump Jr. is an idiot, you know? He says that transgender people are more dangerous than Al-Qaeda. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Absolute nonsense, absolute nonsense. I want to do something and there's so little I can do. And so we're told, say the Nembutsu, Namwami Nembutsu. It doesn't mean only say the Nembutsu, but make that your center point. Make that the center of your identity, this commitment to all beings. It is real, it's not just you. We are committed to the well-being of all living beings. Buddhists are, and this will play out in all of its fullness. But right now, what can we do? We're not sure. You're never sure, you know. We have to live sincerely and with some humility and knowing what our vision is, because we may be able to help others move toward liberation right now, but you never know what's the best thing to do or say. You just have to live sincerely, you know. And we ourselves have to understand, and we have to help others understand that the oppression is both external and internal. These compulsions, you know, as one of the guys, back when I was in Zen Buddhism, one of the people I studied with was Robert Aitken, and one thing he would say is, you're motivated by this desire, and it's just a whim. It's just a whim that comes up. You know, that's true, you know. It's like, why did you take that so damn seriously, you know? Sometimes we can't help it, you know. We are drugged this way and that way by our passions, but we also can sometimes see them and realize they're just not worthy of that much engagement. We all want to be liberated from constraints when they're external. But what about our own drives and urges, you know? There's several different kind of Buddhistic approaches to dealing with our urges and our desires and our compulsions and our obsessions. And the one that doesn't work is just being aware of it. Doesn't disempower it at all. Being aware of your desires does not disempower them at all. That doesn't work. Unfortunately, something we're a little embarrassed about, but early on, early Buddhist approach to overwhelming desires you wanted to be free of was to suppress them, you know. And you know, the way, famously, you may know that one of the ways that Buddhist monks who found that they were getting obsessed with sexuality, they would go to a graveyard and dig up the corpse of a recently deceased woman and meditate on the decaying female body all night. I bet that really did something to kind of cut your desires. It worked, you know, it's not sweet, it's not pretty, it's not the kind of thing we want to talk about, but that is one approach to overwhelm desires, is to suppress them. That idea of just being aware of them is a fantasy, that's going to somehow help. But what we've all done, and the Western term for it, the Freudian term for it, is to sublimate, and we do sublimate. We take and direct it towards art and beauty and social action, and that urge that was originally maybe for something else, that urge towards anger or desire. But we do sublimate, and then we also need to desublimate. You know, we have an overly sublimated society. I remember 1967 finding, who wrote that song? It wasn't the actor named Preston Sturges, it was a black guy named Preston Sturges that wrote the song, Good Morning Little Schoolgirl. Remember 1967 hearing Grateful Dead play that, Good morning little schoolgirl, can I come home with you? Tell your mom and your papa, I'm a little schoolboy too. I found that really offensive, you know? It really bugged me. And I realized, I had to come, you know, come on, you're overreacting. You're being too kibishi. You're being too narrow about it. It's just a song. It's just a song. Let it go. And it was a quite striking thing for me that I still don't like the song. I still don't like the song, but I don't let it bother me anymore, you know. But that's because, you know, you start with you started with kind of music was kind of there were spirituals, you know, and you get things like, I got to cross the River Jordan. I got to cross it by myself. Nobody else can do it for me. I got to cross it by myself. That's in our scriptures too. It doesn't call it the River Jordan, but it's true. That's true. And then you get around to, good morning, little schoolgirl. Tell your mom and your papa, I'm a little schoolboy too. I mean, it's desublimation. It's like, okay, yeah, take that urge and direct it towards spirituality. Yeah, direct 90% of it to spirituality and culture, and keep 10% of it for sexuality, which is what it originally was. Sublimate and desublimate. We need both. We need to loosen up and free ourselves in some respects where we've been repressed, but we also need to keep sublimating, keep redirecting. Those animal urges that are in us can be used to create beauty, architecture, literature, music, you know. They're both good, sublimating and desublimating. Let's go on to card 8, if we may. I'm going to go through the next couple cards pretty quick, and then we'll take a little break and come back. We're supposed to go till noon, right?
Well,
Roughly?
yeah.
Yeah, let me go another 5 minutes and then take a break. Card number 8. There are benefits to the receipt of Shinjin and the faith that it generates in this life and the next. Enlightenment in Amita's pure realm of joy is the benefit we receive at the conclusion of this life. The new life can be understood according to several valid modes of thought. What does that mean, going into the Pure Land and becoming a Buddha? So card 9, if I may. And we're going to look at a couple models here. There are multiple models, and I've mentioned that multiverse model, but I won't get into much today, which is valid and genuine for us. But here, card number 9, among the ways that Shinran's writings represent awakening in the Pure Land are, this is from the Jodo Shinshu, the person becomes one with the light that is the heart of the Tathagata, for his reality is immeasurable life, and his activity is inseparable from immeasurable light. So here's a vision becoming part of some one great big thing. Going to the Pure Land means becoming part of this immense liberating process, which is Amida Buddha. Let me go on to card 10 for another model, different model of what it means to be born into the Pure Land at the exact moment of death. Shinran also explains the person of Shinjin being born into the Pure Land as are receiving the capacities to help others. We then return to this realm to help those who are near and dear to us. Quoting from the Tanisho. We will be able to save by means of transcendental powers, first those with whom we have close karmic relations, whatever karmic suffering they may have sunk into. Now, here's another model, different from becoming the one with a great big thing. It's you come back, and you come back, and you help the people you care about, people you were close to. Well, only Shinran says this. It makes perfect sense. But all the other guys are, oh, we're going to save every living being. Yeah, I mean, yeah. My mother and my father and my best friend when I was 8 years old, yeah. Go start there. My dog was a child. You go back for the dogs and cats too. Just how? What condition will they be in? I don't know. Am I really going to go back for the dogs? You bet I am. Every dog and cat I ever had. We will be able to save by means of transcendental powers. This means understanding cause and effect, because you know what to do. First, those with whom we have close karmic relations, whatever karmic suffering they may have sunk into. We save those first who are near and dear. I use that trite old phrase, near and dear, because we all want to help those dear to us. But relationship is nearness, contact. As enlightened persons, we will come to direct our help to all who we have engaged with in this life, and eventually all living beings. And let's take a break there, and we'll come back to card 11 and try to not hold you too long. So I got 5 more cards. I think we can get through them pretty easily. If not, then we don't. But let me, the next 2 I want to read through and then open for discussion. Number 11, the initial moments in which Shinjin is active in our lives are disruptive. Disruptive of our usual ways of thinking about the world and ourselves. Our sense of who we are is decentered. Our sense of personal identity will recenter. It may recenter with Nimbutsu, the vow of the Buddha as crucial. We jump to card 12, deal with these 2 together. Card 12. Over time, saying the Nimbutsu, reflecting on the teachings, Shinjin begins settling in. The 2 Japanese terms, sadamaru or ketsujo, settling. Shinjin begins settling in, pulsing into our lives on a regular, steady basis. The recentering self may come to have a default mode, which is humble but confident and concerned about the well-being of others. So let's stop here and see what you all have to say. Think views, contrary views, concerns, questions.
The recentered self that's awareness, correct? The recentered self is awareness.
Yes, yeah.
You become aware that something has changed
Mm-hmm.
in you.
Right. But I think it's typically Buddhist that it is, you have to let go of things, you know. You realize your views were imperfect, your previous views were imperfect, and now you've got new views which are imperfect, but they're the ones you have now, and they're an improvement over the old ones. And but you know, everybody would like to move smoothly, but it tends not to be. There tends to be a disruption. This thing about Shinjin settling in, we don't talk much about it, and at some level, it's important. We see exemplars, people for whom this has happened, you know. I always feel that it's good to know that this can happen, but that it's not the be-all and end-all. There was one of our ministers that everybody felt that this Shinjin was always settling in for him, Reverend Haruyoshi Kusada. And I remember I used to eat lunch like 3 or 4 days out of the week in Berkeley at this inexpensive Chinese restaurant. And every Tuesday, every Tuesday at lunchtime, he would take the mail, the Berkeley Buddhist Temple mail, down to the post office. And he'd walk past this restaurant. And, it was, the way he walked, I can't do it, but it was just, no, it was, you know what you probably, do any of you know what Rinzai walking meditation is like? You don't? Oh, you do, great. You'd be surprised. I'll show you Rinzai walking meditation. Rinzai Zen walking meditation. This is it. They walk as fast as you can. It's an exercise. They use it as an exercise. Speed walking. I was quite surprised when I was at this temple across from Nanzenji, and we did this. Okay. Because you're surprised, because Soto Zen walking meditation is like this. Yeah, that's what I was familiar with. But the Rinzai, Kusada Sensei's walk, I can't do it exactly, but it was utterly natural. He just walked down the street always with that mail in his hand, just walking. And I was just like, yeah, this is great, but it's not everything. It's not everything, right? And we were at, the IBS students were, everybody except me, because this was 87 and my chanting wasn't good enough. So the IBS students were helping him chant his sutras, and the secretary was playing koto. And this was supposed to be at the St. Mary's Church in San Francisco. It was supposed to be a night of Buddhist studies. And the Blue Angels, this ultra right-wing Catholic group, found out about this and they complained. And so it was renamed a night of Japanese culture. And Reverend Kusada was angry about this. And so we're in the basement of St. Mary's, and one of my fellow students, Charlie Nemi, is going to explain to Reverend Kusada about the murals. He said, well, this is when Jesus came into Jerusalem and they put down the palm leaves. And Kusada Sensei goes, I don't care. I don't care. So my point is, it doesn't make you a perfect person, right? But it makes your life better. It makes your life better and the people right around you better, but it's not perfection. Having this Shinjin, having this genuine engagement with tradition, genuine confidence, genuine trust, it's a wonderful thing, but there's still work to be done. And we must educate yourself. The only way to let go of prejudices is experience and education. We're all prejudiced against things that seem scary and foreign. Let me jump on to the card 13 if I can. There's just two more left. Three left, and they don't count out right, but that's okay.
I had to break, 13 and 14 have A and B.
Oh, I see, okay.
Because I couldn't get them to.
Too long, perfect, okay. Faith in the Nembutsu and in the vow it embodies is sustained by Shinjin, which is an encounter with and ongoing connection to the Buddha and the vow. We, most of us, have a sort of faith, albeit somewhat limited, in less absolute objects than Amida Buddha, Pure Land, the vow of universal liberation, Nembutsu. 13b, if we may. Most of us have some faith in democracy, some faith that democracy is admirable. I have faith that peace is always best. I hope we all have faith that kindness is real, noble, and possible. For Buddhists in the mature streams of Mahayana Buddhism, such secular faiths are possible as we view reality as fundamentally positive. The classical Mahayana expression of this optimism is the awakening of faith in Mahayana's statement that reality such as it truly is spontaneously permeates our delusions and perfumes our lives. So there's actually a lot here, but one thing I'm expressing here without saying it quite explicitly is there's a change in Buddhist tradition over the centuries in the view of the world. Buddhism, from its earliest strata, has very clear views of human beings. And the world is pretty much just there, right? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it neutral? I don't know. It seems to be vaguely bad, actually. If you look at Theravada Buddhism, the world doesn't look very good. It's something you want to get off the wheel, you know. But as the tradition develops, we do see reality as fundamentally positive. Again, for me, this modern concept of emergence is very important. Goodness emerges from reality itself. So does everything else. But our role is to try to draw it towards that goodness, to keep the kindness emergent. I love the simple Taoist way of putting this, although I'll mention I've been doing Tai Chi for 51 years, and the first time I encountered Tai Chi was a guy who was relatively well known. His Tai Chi wasn't as good as my teacher, but his name was Zhaofu Feng, and he had a book, he had a translation of the Tao Te King. And in 1967, his translation of the famous Chinese classics compiled as the Tao Te King had a translation that I think is not for the ages, which is, "The Tao is groovy." I think that, that phraseology is not for the age. The Tao is groovy, but it really comes right from the text. And it is the idea of a groove, you know? Reality grooves toward the good. This is what Taoism says, and I think very much what Mahayana Buddhism sees as well. Given the possibility, reality itself will groove toward the good, you know? And it doesn't mean that it's guaranteed. It doesn't mean that goodness will manifest on its own. It means that all other things being equal, reality would rather manifest the good. We've come to see it that way. Is it true? I don't know. It's a way of viewing the world as positive, which is what Mahayana Buddhism came to see, which is not in the Theravada at all, and is not in the earlier layers of the text, so far as I can see. But we come to say, as it says in the Awakening of Faith in Mahayana, usually nowadays dated 6th century of the Common Era, used to be dated 4th, and what that tells us is that reality, such as it truly is, spontaneously permeates our delusions and perfumes our lives. Reality is good. Then we go on to card number 14, and we can discuss all this stuff at the end here. Card number 14A. Have faith in life. Again, every good thing has emerged from life. Have faith in the goodness and beauty you have seen emerge in life. Listen to Dharma messages, read Buddhist books, say the Nembutsu aloud in forms like Namo Amida Butsu. Over time, discover whether trust in the Nembutsu and the vow of universal liberation it embodies is growing in your heart and mind. And let's go to the next card, 2B. In any case, follow the Taoists who tell us that reality grooves toward the good, and the Buddhists who tell us that reality naturally moves to permeate and transform our delusions. Life is the source of all the Buddhas and all good things. Allow the allure of life to draw you into new adventures. Saying the Nembutsu from time to time on your expeditions. Go ahead to the next card.
I thought that was it. I think that's it.
That's it? Okay. Well, that's it. And what else was I going to say?